Hey, what's up everyone, it's Phil Meyer. Let's talk about Sage on controller. Sages are barrier healers who forego traditional staffs and tomes in favor of
frickin' laser beams.
Yeah, that's right. I'd like to show you the level 100 controller layout I've come to for the job, which uses a full double cross hotbar set. Though I feel the job works best with a single set, towards the end of the video I'll also touch on variations I explored for dual cross hotbar sets. The goal is to give you enough information that you can use this video to land on your own layout. You might even say that we'll detail the layout with laser precision. Okay, don't worry, I'll stop with the jokes. Maybe. All of my job layouts focus on placing actions that are used instantly on the controller's face buttons, so that they can be more easily used while moving with the left analog stick. Most of Sage's abilities are used instantly, which is what helps to make the job feel fast. So many of the choices become about placing skills to make them easier to combo together, as well as prioritizing actions that have shorter cooldowns. So first, I structured my layout using my White Mage layout as a template in order to keep good consistency between the setups without sacrificing performance for Sage. All of the healer role actions remain on the same positions on the cross hotbars, and this really helps with muscle memory. For me, it's especially important to keep Swiftcast and Raise in the same spots so I don't trip myself up when I switch between the jobs. You can check out my White Mage controller layout video for more detail on these choices. There's a link in the video description. So now let's focus on Sage's abilities, starting with the right trigger of the base hotbar. First, EXHB is a primary ability that is under constant use. It's a modifier that morphs 4 of Sage's core spells into instant casts. This goes on the bottom face button. Dosis and Dyskrasia, Sage's primary attacks, then go on 2 of the other face buttons in this cluster. Even though by itself Dosis does have a short cast time, when morphed into Eucrasian Dosis, it is cast instantly. Being able to cast this while moving is especially important in dungeons, so in my opinion it's a must that both Dosis and Dyskrasia go on face buttons right next to EXHB. Gerakole is a damage mitigating AoE that can be used while moving and is used quite often. To me it feels similar to White Mage's Assize ability even though they have different effects. This goes on the right face button for consistency and for easy use. Alright, let's come back to this trigger's D-pad later and talk about the left trigger's face button cluster next. This cluster is set up similarly to the right trigger but with a focus on healing. Sage's single target and AoE healing spells are on the left and top face buttons respectively, mirroring the attack spells on the right trigger. Zoe is on a bottom face button. This ability powers up Sage's next healing spell. Spell is the key word there. Sage only has 2 healing spells, technically 4 when you count the Eucrasian versions of Diagnosis and Prognosis. So this goes on the bottom face button of this cluster so that it can be easily comboed together with those 2 spells. When modified with EXHB, Diagnosis and Prognosis are also cast instantly, just like the Eucrasian attack spells. That's why I've placed these on face buttons. In addition, by having Zoe share the same face button location as EXHB, just on the other trigger, it feels fluid to combo EXHB, Zoe, and either healing spell, all while not missing a step. This is especially useful for Eucrasian Prognosis, which is Sage's base AoE shield spell. The last ability in this cluster is Icarus, which is Sage's gap closer. I prefer to have gap closers on face buttons so I can more easily maintain movement up to the moment that I use them. I also prefer the right face button specifically for consistency between my other job layouts. Okay, let's finish up with the base crossbar's left trigger. All of the skills on the D-pad have no cast time, but I'll usually be targeting a party member before using them, which is why they are on the D-pad. Tarokole and Druokole are both single target healing abilities. Krasis, placed next to them, powers up healing received from healing actions for a targeted party member, so its effect combos very well with both of these abilities. All 3 are off global actions, meaning that after use there's no cooldown to wait for before the next ability may be used. So keeping these actions adjacent to each other really helps optimize their use. Let's finish up on the base cross hotbar with the right trigger's D-pad. All of the actions here are cast off globally and instantly, but their usage is more situational, which is why I've placed them on the D-pad. First, Cardia is Sage's bread and butter. When you're first starting off with Sage, you'll likely start a dungeon or trial run by placing it on your tank and then forgetting about it. However, as you gain proficiency with the job, you can move it between party members and yourself to more effectively heal as you attack. Since targeting a party member is usually done with the D-pad already, the skill can also go on the D-pad. When Cardia is moved between party members, it's common to also use Soteria to give it an extra boost. Keeping this right next to Cardia really helps with that combo. Rhizomata instantly grants 1 stack of Adderskull, which powers many of Sage's abilities that have placed in both the base and double cross hotbars. The skill hastens the restock of Adderskull reserves. It can also be woven into combos to empower the next skill activation. Even though it has a long cooldown, having it placed in the base hotbar makes it easier to hit those combos than if it were in the double cross hotbar instead. Generally, I try to avoid skill placements that would result in combos going from one side of the double cross hotbar to the other, which tend to be the slowest, and keeping Rhizomata here accomplishes that. Finally, Psyche is an off-global single-target attack that also does splash damage. Keeping it on the right trigger D-pad makes it easier to weave in between either Dosis or Dyscrasia, which are on the face buttons. It would be helpful if this were also on a face button, but it doesn't feel at all bad in this position and other skills have priority. Okay, let's go up into the double cross hotbar's right trigger section. Like I mentioned at the video start, Ayero and Swiftcast take their locations on the face buttons for consistency with my White Mage layout. Keeping them next to each other on face buttons really helps for raising party members while minimizing time that I'm not moving. Toxicon is pretty much an instant cast version of Dosis with a couple bonuses. It's a single target attack that also does splash damage, but more importantly it is cast instantly. Its usage is throttled by Sage's stacks of Adder Sting, so really it's meant to be used to fill in for Dosis when Sage is moving. For that reason, it goes on a face button, the same one as Dosis for consistency, but it's deprioritized to the double cross hotbar because it's used less often. Phlegma is placed on a face button in this cluster for similar reasons. It relies on its own charges for use and also requires that you're within melee range of your target in order to activate it. You'll use it less often than Sage's other attacks, so it goes on the double cross hotbar. Just a note, though I don't have this placed next to Icarus, which would help Sage get into melee range in order to use Phlegma, it doesn't feel bad at all to launch Icarus from the base hotbar, then shift into the double cross hotbar to use Phlegma while my character is getting into melee range. Alright, let's finish up this section with the D-pad skills. Surecast and Rescue are placed here for consistency with my White Mage layout and because it's less critical to have them on face buttons. Pneuma has a cast time as well as a long cooldown, so a Sage will need to stop moving to cast it, and it can't be used very often. For these two reasons, it can go on a D-pad in the double cross hotbar. The last ability in this cluster is Philosophia, which, similar to Zoe, will power up Sage's healing spells for a moderate duration, along with giving other beneficial effects to the party. Because it has a lengthy cooldown, I think this is best placed in the double cross hotbar. It still feels fine to activate Philosophia, then drop down into the base cross hotbar to start using Sage's healing spells. We're almost done with the base layout. Let's finish up with the left trigger side of the double cross hotbar. This is where I've placed Sage's off-global AoE heals and barriers. On this section's D-pad is where Repose and Lucid Dreaming are placed, for both the same reasons as my White Mage layout and for consistency with it. I've placed Physis, Isokole, and Pepsis on the face button cluster. These AoE heal variations are all throttled by their own cooldowns, which is why they are in the double cross hotbar. Since they are cast instantly and can be used more often than Holos, they get the face buttons. On the bottom face button is Haima. I keep this here for similar reasons to White Mage's Divine Benison ability. Even though it is a single target skill, meaning I'd need to target a party member before using it, I most often use it on myself or on my main tank, of which I frequently target with assist targeting. Those don't require using the D-pad, so keeping Haima on a face button lets me put up a barrier quickly in an emergency while maintaining movement. Holos, the final AoE heal, gets the top D-pad button due to its lengthy cooldown. Sage just isn't able to use it as often as other abilities. Last but not least, Panhaima is the AoE variant of Haima. I have it on the D-pad because I gave Haima priority for a face button. Panhaima doesn't require a target, however, so depending on your own playstyle, you may actually prefer to swap the two. Okay, we've covered all of Sage's ability placements. If you're wondering where Limit Break is, I keep it on one half of my extended cross hotbar, along with other common actions I use across all combat jobs. That's my current Sage layout on a single cross hotbar set. Recently, I've started exploring expanding the layouts into dual hotbar sets, so I wanted to mention some ideas for that as well. In my opinion, the double cross hotbar works really well for skills that you need to activate quickly and in isolation, but not as well for a group of skills that are frequently used together in a combo. That's where switching to a second cross hotbar layout can be beneficial, and this works especially well for DPS jobs that switch between single target and AoE attacks or ranged and melee attacks. Because Sage as a healer doesn't really do this, I still think a single set works best. That said, however, here are a couple dual set variations that I wanted to show for your consideration. First, my Sage layout could be split into hotbar sets where one has a focus on healing spells and the other on attack spells. At a glance, this could make sense, since Sage's healing and attack spells share buttons on my layout and are both comboed with Eucrasia. If you were going to go that route, the layout might look something like this, where both the healing and attack spells go on the right trigger face buttons, keeping Eucrasia on the bottom face button. You could then place Zoe on the right face button in the healing set, and an attack spell of your choosing in its place for the attacking set. This would free up 3 face buttons on the base crossbar's left trigger for further optimization of my base layout. The reason I don't prefer this for myself is that Sage really never switches into a healing or attack mode, and splitting the skills into 2 hotbar sets in this way adds complexity to the layout that would likely just slow me down. Even though Sage is a more proactive healer than reactive, I still think a main part of healing is incorporating attacking and healing together as the situation requires. But you may feel differently, which is why I wanted to present this option. Now, another smaller yet potentially helpful alternative is to split my base layout into single target and AoE primary attack sets. This change would be simple and would keep Dosis on the left face button in the single target set and swap it out for Dyscrasia in the AoE set. It's only one ability that is swapped, but that's because they are usually not intermingled. Either you're dishing out AoE attacks or you're focusing on a single enemy. Doing this would free up one of the face buttons in the base hotbar, which could be filled in with another attack spell, potentially resulting in moving any other skill you prefer to a face button as well. And if I were to choose one, that would probably be Panheima. Now, is it worth it to fork the base layout into 2 sets for this small optimization? I don't think so, but controller layouts are highly personal, which is why the game allows you to put skills wherever you'd like, rather than making the choice for you. Alright everyone, thanks for watching the video, especially if you made it to the end. I'm working on getting out more controller layouts soon. If this video helped you out, consider sharing it with a friend or just hitting that like button. I'd really appreciate it. And like always, keep adventuring and take care.